Hello everyone, welcome to the Ineffable Else. I am still in the midst of my travels, so I shan't be editing this. I will be trying to do it all in one take. So let me try and get some things out the way first. Please remember to subscribe. Please contact me if you'd like a reading and visit the website ineffablelse.com and comment underneath. How are you feeling in these times? I've been doing the Camino de Santiago for the last 5 weeks. I've been on a pilgrimage with Ricardo, and we have been in our own world and also seeing a condensed world within our own spiritual path. And the same energies are manifesting at all different levels, whether you're in your bubble of one or if you're paying attention to the global news. All things are manifesting at all different levels. August is always a very explosive time for the weather, for the climate, and we've had extreme flooding here as well as extreme temperatures, and it's now impossible. It's beautiful outside, but it's the middle of the day and I can't be out there in this heat, so I'm inside, and I'm here to talk to you about this sun that's been underway for the last it's at the 12th degree of Virgo now, and I've got the chart in front of me, and I'm going to just make a few comments about what I feel and what I see. And essentially, for me, Virgo is always a period of time when it comes back to my ascendant, because my ascendant is Virgo, and that means that this is now going to start my first house themes. This is a new year for me. And I've said this before, and I think it's important that people look at their ascendants and start to see the ascendant as the start of their own personal year, because this is when you start focusing on your first house themes and then moving through the year. So whereas the natural zodiac starts in March with Aries, for me, my first house is placed in the final degrees of Virgo and into Libra. So now I'm wrapping up my 12th house, and it's always felt like a very explosive time, August, the culmination of many things for me personally, and generally because it's Leo, this is a lot of fire. And how do we handle fire? This is the challenge. This is the climax of the ego. And then we move into Virgo, and there's a little bit of a panic. And the Virgo is the perfectionist because it's the 6th house before we move through into the transpersonal. So this is the end of the personal. This is taking everything that we've learned from the last 6 months and saying, what are we going to take forward into in the northern hemisphere, the decline of the temperature and the decline of the decline of selfishness and something much more collective. And are we preparing ourselves emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically? Something I am going to make a video just about the pilgrimage, but the thing that I'd like to illustrate here, because I did finish it whilst this was 800 kilometers, whilst we transitioned into the Virgo Sun. And Virgo is earth, and there is a physicality to it. And I've just got a message from the body, which is that it loves to move all day, every day. It loves to become exhausted. It absolutely loves that. The mind, not so much. The mind can't necessarily focus on all these things. It can't go down its little rabbit holes in the same way when you're moving the body, because there's a movement happening. There's the knowledge of the transitory nature of reality, and things are constantly changing, and you can't get stuck in an illusion that things are the same. So in terms of the Virgo element of this, it's I don't need to worry. I don't need to be concerned. I don't need to use my mind. I need to learn to rest properly. And that was reflected to me through the physical body. If you don't rest correctly, then you will suffer. And you need to ice, and you need to completely be able to switch off even your dreams to be able to continue the next day and to be in the right frame of mind. And Virgo is sensible. And whether or not you think that you've noticed and observed in yourself and in others an unbalanced Virgo who wants to control and wants to perfect and wants to have everything a certain way, the highest manifestation of Virgo is to embody that perfection and not worry about it, and not worry about missing the mark, and constantly striving, but knowing that we have the potential to get there, because there wouldn't be these perfection standards if it wasn't possible. But to also have that level of forgiveness when we don't meet them. Okay, so it's interesting that at this time we do have 12 degrees Virgo Sun. We also have Mars in Virgo, Mars about taking action. So this is the opposite of the doubt that is sometimes represented through Virgo. This is an assuredness, an assurity, and this security in what to do and what choices to make. And for me, after this experience of pilgrimage, I'm really ready for routine again. And this is that back to school feeling, you know, it's like ready to utilize all the skills that we've developed in a really, really sensible way. It's senses. We get some sense back. Sense gets either knocked into us in quite a harsh way, or we just see the benefit of the structure and these more earthy Saturnian principles. So yeah, Virgo Mars, like taking action through common sense, through a bigger picture, and less, because there's been all this abundance, there's less of this feeling of mine. It's like there's more than enough, so I don't need to panic, don't need to hoard. We have it all. And then we have Mercury and Venus in Libra. Venus is at home in Libra, so this is a lovely, lovely taste of what's to come with the Libra Sun. And you know, let's make this year, why not make the Libra and Scorpio seasons beautiful by setting your mind right now. So there's always this dichotomy between framing things in a positive or a negative light, but actually being able to see things as they are and then move forward. That's really helping things, you know, when things are way too glossed over and everything's perfect in Libra, and then way too negative, everything's shit in Scorpio. Well, no, you need to have that steady place in the middle way that is much more beneficial. You need to have that kind of heart space consistency as you move forward into these other more dramatic signs. And then we've got both Saturn and Jupiter both in Aquarius. There's not anything making too many hard angles or too many. We've got a nice air trine happening essentially at the moment between Saturn, Mercury, and the North Node. And it's a sort of, counting your chickens period of time. It's nothing too hard and abrupt and harsh. It's much smoother. At the moment, particularly, we've got a nice Leo moon. And it's always like giving us the flavors again of things we've experienced. This is the moon sort of coming back round again like a relay race and picking up these flavors and bringing them back into the now, into where we are now. It's incredibly difficult to be reflective at this time because so much has changed so quickly in the last few years that kind of reflection is new now. The way that you can frame the past is new now, and the way you frame it is not by making a story or glossing over something. It's by looking at me now, like cause and effect. I see, I did that then, and now this is the repercussion. And it can be something so small. And there's been a lot of while I was walking, I was meditating a lot on the thing about fate and fortune, destiny, and free will. And I'm someone who, according to the palm, I don't have the destiny line, and I like it that way because I feel I write my own destiny. But I only write my own destiny in terms that I choose the level at which it's going to manifest, because otherwise destiny just comes down to what our automatic automaton behaviors are based on our charts and based on our upbringings. It's just what we naturally do, but we can choose to grab hold of life and take it by the horns and choose the highest possible expression. And in Virgo, it can get very, very lost in the nitty-gritty and right and wrong, and miss the point entirely about enjoying something. And it's a reflection on how we've been the previous 5 months before this, and the previous signs that were much more to do with me. I myself am looking forward to a lot more we. And yes, 12th house themes for me, as Virgo is my ascendant. It means that I always feel Leo as this big crescendo collective time, and I wonder whether that's just because it's the summer, so it has that big explosive factor, but it's got this added element for me of being something very transpersonal. It's sort of flipped on its head, because then I start my personal journey with the first house as I move into the collective sphere for the rest of the world. So I'm really hoping to be able to bring forward what I've learned into something very, very coherent. And moving through into Libra, the biggest thing that we all need help with is our relationships, because I am now with my partner's grandparents, and I see the duration of life. They've been together for 60 years. And if you don't have a partner and you are alone, what are you taking with you? Where are you? What is it for if you have no one to share it with? And this is not just romantic relationships. This is coming back to the thing with, okay, fate and destiny, free will, but also independence and codependence and interdependence. And turning your back on codependence, for many of us, has turned into this ferocious and fierce independence. My space, my personal space. But then how to open up to a we from that place and leave the baggage of the codependence behind. And it takes a lot of courage, and it takes going to the edge of the cliff and really looking and saying, I have no idea what's coming next. And as much as there have been snowplow people before that have cleared ways, every individual and their path and their expression of relationship is different. So it's that going over a speed bump feeling, which Leo can help Virgo with to carry through this huge gamble, because it's much safer for me to stay in my little bubble and stay in my little patterns rather than, but what if I chose a higher octave? What if I chose the more dangerous thing? What if I chose the thing that I perceive as much more dangerous choice? With it being so much air and earth at the moment, this is the opportunity to be more reflective. And I've said it before that whenever we have a feminine sign, this is much more internal. You know, the masculine, the fire, and the air is much more external and pushing out onto the world. But when you have earth and water, it's more of an inward thing. But with fire and water, these are the kind of the big players, the big elements that are very like, it's like God and Gaia, and very powerful, potent. But when you have air and you have earth, it's much more like in tarot they say the prince and the princess, and it's kind of that tier below where we can just reflect and just see, and there's a bit less pressure on the weight, a bit less weight on the shoulders of these characters, and it's training wheels for how we move forward. And because it's in Virgo, which is earth, feminine earth, this is very receptive this month. And what are you going to take in, and what are you going to reflect out into? Yes, it's masculine air in Libra, but Libra is the, it's there's such a softness to that it's difficult to read it as something extremely active. Although it is cardinal air, it wants to move us forward. It's so subtle that it's like the wind through the corn. You have to be watching to notice that these things are changing. And a decision that you might have made 15 years ago could still, you didn't think of it as anything back then, could still be having repercussions now in your consciousness. So it's not like make the right choice, make the right decision. It's just make a choice, make a decision, and know that every little thing can have significance and meaning. And the key factor with Virgo is to start feeling that intuition, start feeling into your gut. Read the Essenes. Read the Essenes. It's very funny to me how we make such a big pomp and spectacle and show of many religious practices and just tiny bits of information that comes to the surface. And then something like the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Book of the Essenes talking about God as mother. Follow the laws of the mother. It sounds very different. It has a different effect when you think of God in that way, as it's, well, the laws of nature. Do right by your body. Do right by her laws, or you will suffer the consequences. It's cause and effect, and it's very, very logical. We're breaking down all of these things that say, emotions are feminine and intuition is masculine, and there's a far more overlap happening, and God is masculine and God is feminine and God is everywhere, and God is totally physical and totally invisible. And in the Essenes they talk about your eyes are God's, your nose belongs to God, your ears, your tongue, your feeling, and your guts. They talk about your what's the word? Not colon, your intestines, as being part of God. And also I see very much as a Scorpio element, something hidden, something wavy and squiggly and internal and invisible. And in the Essenes they talk about this being something of a sense that we shut down. We could see as God sees, but we close our eyes. We could hear as God hears, but we close our ears. We could speak as God speaks, but we speak with a forked tongue. And we don't feel things. We're not so sensitive. And Virgo time is exactly the moment to get sensitive and to get real and to get clean. And not see it as this dualistic punishment thing, this stupid cycle of dieting and self-abuse and lying to ourselves about what nourishment really is. Looking at things very, very logically, and just imagining if you had no one to defend yourself to, no nagging mother to say, I am eating right, no, just you on your own. How would you eat to have the best thriving that you could possibly have, without any of the story about what the accepted norms of diet and quantity and regularity of food, just taking all this stuff for granted, when something you need to learn on your own. Every human needs to go through the experiment and the experience of feeling what is right for them, and I'm not encouraged to do that. We get lost in a lot of concepts and a lot of unnecessary stories in the mind instead of the basics: how to love, how to eat, how to breathe, how to rest, how to sleep and relax, and how to be in relationship, how to be honest, how to enjoy and utilize this time on the earth to the best of our capabilities for ourselves. Not to please something external, not to please a punishing God, but to align with something that's naturally going to make us into happier and healthier people. Yes. There's always a slight frustration with the Virgo that can see above and beyond and see the potential within the minute, because we're not going to get through into Sagittarius unless we've got the basics right now. So this is a pivot moment in the year. It's an absolute pivotal moment to choose, to make a decision. And I've said it in the Pisces. The thing with the Pisces in the Virgo axis is it's all subtle, and it's all personal little decisions that make big impacts on the collective. Further on down the line, it's this toing and froing and contraction and expansion. Wanted to talk about birth. Birth is not a feminine concept. Birth is extremely dynamic. When you give birth, you contract and you expand. You're contracting and expanding. It's Jupiter and Saturn in a dance with each other, then creating a human life. You couldn't do that with all of the elements coming together. You need the spark of life to exist, and too many times we're holding back in one area or another. I'm so glad that the way astrology is being becoming so much more well known by the majority of people, and seeing beyond the sun signs, but it goes so much deeper. And I have a slight impatience with how people can get to know themselves and get to go to the deeper levels of who they are, because really we are all 12 archetypes within one vessel, within one, what appears to be one consciousness. We have so many levels and so many warring factions, and if we can bring them all into harmony within ourselves, then that starts reflecting in our external world. Is what's happening in Afghanistan is something that's also happening within one individual person's consciousness in the other side of the world. These are specific energies that are coming and just shining a light on what we need to address as a human species if we want to be happier and healthier and more inclusive, at the same time more structured. This dance between empathy and solidarity and solidity, and how much you can give and how much you can receive, and how this victim and this savior is just a dichotomy that is something we just perceive externally, when really there's all of this happening, shifting within our consciousness at all times. This is such a shaking, shifting time of the year, so I advise you to grab it and feel the doubt, feel the full force of that, and then just make a decision. Just make a decision. Yeah. Well, I'm really keen to start giving readings again after this experience, and I will speak to you again soon. So contact me and follow the Instagram account. I'm just learning how to use it properly. But yes, take care.